Welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show. All I'm saying, next time, bring the evidence. All you do, you come here and have corruption.
How come
just here. Next time you come, bring the I am not talking about that. I'm talking about you in 2024, December, saying there's corruption. Bring it.
Let me ask you this question. I would like to ask the AG to propose legislation for what we call small claims court. There are lots of poor people, to an example you just gave, that they have issues with others and sometimes with large firms, but the lawyer fee is greater than the fee you're claiming.
It is their right. The right that someone has. All our rights exist in context.
What is the context of a second medical opinion?
Because you're disrespecting the process.
No.
Jesus, this is common sense, man.
Any situation which you seem to do, you're just dealing with Afro-Guyanese issues. If one, you can't bring and pull the leaders of the African community together, you're failing. And if two, you can't put forward a future, a blueprint, and a plan for African Guyanese, you're failing as well.
Hi there. Pleasant Monday evening to you. This is the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Leonard. This evening, gracing our program is a man who needs no introduction. He's been around a long time and maybe a dinosaur like me. Mr. Christopher Ram, attorney at law, but more known for being a chartered accountant, but also known to be a public commentator on everything under the sun, under the moon. Thanks for joining us this evening. And Christopher, thanks for having us into your office.
Sure. Welcome, you, Chad.
Yeah, sure.
You know Leonard, quick. Chris, I want to start in an unusual way. And that's because my analysis informs me that you have a latitude, wide, extensive latitude with the Starbook News. Are you a major shareholder of the Starbook News?
Absolutely not. You can't be a shareholder and an auditor. But before that, let me say this. The program is being recorded on Sunday, Father's Day. Let me wish you all and every Guyanese father and every Guyanese family happy Father's Day.
Are you on the board of directors?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Now.
And I'm glad you asked that because that unfortunately has been taken. And if I may take this opportunity, I see a very prominent figure, I don't like calling people's names unless I have to, saying that some legal action I brought is being financed or encouraged by Azraddin Mohammed. That is so completely false. I've been writing about this particular issue, Section 160, Article 160, and Section 11B of the Representation Be Black. It's something I've thought about for a long time. I'd actually taken advice from former Chief Justice Ian Chang after he had come off the bench. So it's something that I care about, individual representation, which I think is part of democracy.
Okay. You have 15, 20, 25 years ago.
More than that.
Right. You write about things that are in the bosom of Guyanese society. But there are times when there is a neat avoidance of issues that people like the Guyanese people would like to hear from well-known public intellectuals. And there are two things that I haven't been able to, I haven't seen your reaction to them, and there's nothing from you about them. And so I'll ask you about these two issues. One is David Hinds. I regard David Hinds as having manifestation of evil thoughts. I cannot think in my life reading anyone in the public domain who's so straightforwardly insensitive to racial feelings and also criticize people based on their ethnicity. Hinds has now generated himself as one of the most controversial person in Guyana for a long time to espouse undiluted racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about David Hinds.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you asked it because I think I hope we can clarify issues and conceptions and misconceptions. I have written on a number of issues, pretty wide range of issues. I'm a citizen. I've been around. I think I entered public life sometime in 1958 when I had a letter published in the Guyana Graphic. Some of us know about that. I took part I was arrested in the UK. I was a student union activity. Well, we know each other from Grenada. We know each other from People's Parliament, etc. You're quite right. Funny, yesterday I had a discussion with somebody about David Hinds. I think it's very unfortunate, the direction in which David Hinds has gone. Very, very unfortunate. I have a lot of respect for David Hinds and what he did during the Bonham era. As you know, David Hinds went to prison standing up for democracy. And I cannot forget that. And it creates a little bit of a conflict for me, Freddie. It does. But racism has no place in our society. It's not constructive. It helps nobody. Yes, if we see a particular race, particular class being discriminated against or their rights being violated, we should speak. You also raised this question. You haven't seen me touch on some issues. I thought you might raise issues because I'm an auditor, Raman McRae. I head an audit firm. I'm an attorney at law. And we cannot, you have a confidentiality obligation to clients. You can't go discussing their business. You can discuss the industry, like the banking industry. You can discuss how the banks really rip off customers. And unfortunately, things like I certainly don't have enough time. You correctly pointed out. I am an attorney, chartered accountant. I teach 3 subjects in the final year of the university.
Oh, you're straight from David Hinds?
Yes, no. I'm just telling you.
You're coming back to David Hinds?
Yes, I will. And I want you to have follow-up questions because I did say the conflict I have. But no, he should not be spouting racism. He likes to say, I thought he said, well, that's how black people talk to black people. Well, I am not a black person. I can't say how black people should speak to black people, persons. But so I don't think what he does is consistent with the principles of Walter Rodney, the principles of the WP, and we all were very close to the WP. At one time, I was never a member. I used to attend executive meetings like that. Never a member. I think it's counterproductive what he's doing. And it's both to his own cause, or what he perceives to be his own cause, and to the national interest.
The second one I want to touch on before Leonard comes in. The Adriana Young incident, issue, scandal, controversy riveted this nation. Some of us have taken position. I have taken, I think, as a public intellectual. There are people who've been reading you, looking at you for decades, and they want to say, what you think about the man chopping down the mango tree, etc. And I've given my position. I felt that issue was politicized. A tragedy was politicized. I don't believe she was murdered. What's your take on the Adrian Young?
Well, first of all, are you suggesting I haven't said anything?
Well, if you have, I have to apologize.
I think
it didn't come
well,
across.
No need to apologize, Freddie. I just wanted to clarify.
I have read your position.
No, I actually had 2 paid advertisements. One in the Chronicle, one in the Sabbath News, and one in the Belgian News. So I have not been silent.
With your name at the bottom?
Yes.
Saying what?
Well, the advertisement, it's a full page ad. I told the circumstances, etc. But I said, let us not, I can't remember, let us not something Adriana Young twice. Because, look, she had an unfortunate death, whatever the circumstances. And I don't believe the forensic autopsy. And funny, I was just listening to a program in the Atlantic about this person who has dealt with death row people and all of these issues. And she mentioned things about forensic autopsy. Until we get the scientific report on on not only the cause of her death, but the circumstances surrounding her death. Like, for example, when I talk about the contract, I say we should talk about the circumstances surrounding the contract. Again, that is not yet in the public domain. I don't like to speak. I tend to be very careful. I choose my words carefully. That I cannot understand why she has not been laid to rest, but that's not my place to say.
But
her family must say that. Why they have kept her so long?
I think
you can exhume a body.
But I think the autopsy report, the first autopsy report, and the accompanying toxicology report are out. They're in the possession of the police, and the police issued public statements about that. Plus, the RCMP, former RCMP guy, have made this pronouncement, and he was clear. He thought she drowned, and there was some negligence, and she was there in the pool. What scientific report you're waiting?
Didn't they go to Atlanta, Georgia, to do some additional? I thought I saw
that is out too.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. And if you were to present me with it and ask me for my comment,
we haven't seen it.
Good. Well, but once I see, look, Freddie, you know me. We've been together, Grenada. We all have been together.
We've known each other a long time.
Sorry?
We've known each other a long time.
So I don't hold back on if I must be informed. I think it's part of a problem in this society. We don't try to get sufficient information. Like the other night, if I may, I was supposed to hand in an article, and I said, I missed one piece of financial information, and I said, can I publish? Can I send it tomorrow? And the editor said yes. I try to be very good. We all have, public commentators have a duty to our country. Our country is too divided, and we should try as best as we can. Not that everybody must become one. There's no such possibility, and that would not be a healthy society. But we should be more responsible whenever we issue statements. So I just want to tell you, I put paid public advertisement on Adriana.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to get your take on that because you write so much, and I probably looked at the advertisement, but you have to understand how the human mind operates. When it's not a news item, when it's not but I have never interviewed you. Let me say this.
It's been the other way.
I've never interviewed you. Yeah. But let me say this, and I want to say this, because these things pass into history. These things pass into history. When people look back 50 years ago, they say, Chris did that for Freddie. I always remember something you did for me.
Please don't say anything. No, like that.
You were trained as a chartered accountant. I'm trained as a historian. When Khurshid Siddharth identified me as the only poor man that should pay property tax, you came to my rescue. You did all the for me and handed to the GRA. I think people may turn off their relation over years. They may not see each other, but you should not be ungrateful, or you should not be recognized. That helping hand when you were in the doldrums. I have a wife that I love more than anything else in this world, Chris. And when anything happened to me, I see how she gets depressed. And then Khurshid Siddharth say, you haven't paid property tax for 7 years. I don't know what I had. So when you did the thing, all it came up to $72,000. But although we don't share the same political perspective over the years that we know each other, that kind of history between people should remain part of history. I've spoken too long as the guest. Let's go over to
that's all right.
Yeah.
Chris, you are a household name in Guyana, and your commentary and things like that. And you appear to be a man of stern conviction, that you speak of the conviction of your heart. And you seem to be a perennial government critic, regardless of which government is in power. Is that the orientation you want to project, or you just look for the ills of society and deal with that, and you let the positive just flow the way they are? You set out to do that?
It's perhaps with some kind of variation. Look, I think the government says, I will run your country well. Vote for me, I will run your country well. I think a government has a duty to do right things, to do things right. Not that the policy, they can't please everybody. The electorate has different views. But so that you're possibly right. But I don't feel I need to say that, look, the government has done right. If I were to enter into a debate on an issue, then I must say what was good about it. Like when President Ali talked about this $10 billion, I thought it was good he intervened, because I've been writing about that for ages, and sometime maybe you should talk about Zainul, the carpenter, who $42,000 a month. Come on, you can afford to pay the pension, the court rule. Nandalal got his law firm to appeal. So the position I take, yes, that's what you're there for. If I see something is wrong, if I see something that I have I can add something to the national debate, then I think I should do it.
Because one of the problems I have as an academic and a social activist in this country is when you peruse, when you look at the human mind, sometimes the mind, you don't know whether the person is being truthful or whether they actually believe those things. I don't believe Tony Blair was the Prime Minister of the UK. I don't believe his explanation that he thought Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. I believe President Bush asked him, help me out here. So when you look at people who talk about it, we should not be divisive. We should try to strive for sometimes their own rhetoric and their own narratives exacerbate the situation. And I want to believe sometimes you're too consistent in this denigration of the government. I can give you some examples. Go on. I have your letter here that is entitled, "The presidency has been diminished by Mr. Ali, and he ought not to be elected." Kit Nascimento replied and said, look, Ram's letter is born with presumption rather than fact. Let's see some of the presumptions. You said here that he is comfortable using public funds to pay officials, not for what they do, but for what they're willing not to do. That's number one. Number two, the president appointed a commission of inquiry into the Madia Inferno, designed not to pursue the truth, but to control the result. I mean, a president, a fire in Caribbean context killed 22 young children. The president enacted a commission of inquiry. And you're going to go so far to say, headed by a Guyanese icon, Joe Singh, and he enacted that commission to control the result, is not going too far now. The one that I disagree with, and this is because of my understanding of philosophy, is Charandas. The president did the same with Charandas, who betrayed the APNU government and was rewarded by Ali with a top-level diplomatic posting. So he's supposed to shun Ali. Ali supposed to shun Charandas. I don't believe Charandas betrayed the APNU government. I believe the APNU government betrayed Charandas and betrayed the country. And I could see him saying, no, this government should no longer remain in power. Those are some of the things that Nascimento is saying that are more presumptions rather than fact. But this is quite a harsh letter. And if we cannot re-elect President Ali, who are we going to re-elect?
Freddie, I'm glad you asked those questions. I think both you and Leonard wrote. And you see, as like we're doing now, we must be able to have civil discussion. We don't need to raise our voice or rant, that kind of language. Commissions of inquiry. Freddie, you're a historian, you're a social commentator. You know how terms of reference are written. Look at the 1962 terms of reference. 2 lines. You don't try to circumscribe a commission of inquiry. And I don't believe, this is why I said, please don't praise me. I don't believe in icons. I don't believe in national awards to put people alive. I don't. Charandas Kasod, you should have heard, read the answer, what Charandas Kasod had talked about sugar. So you have to know the circumstances. I can tell you, Charan is my lawyer. I am his lawyer. But I disagree. You take a man who has just crossed the floor on a ticket, and you reward him. How does it look? Does it look good? Why not ask Leonard? Why not Freddie Kissoon? Why not anybody? Why Charandas Kasod? But don't just focus on Charan. As I said, the terms of reference
of the Mario.
Look at the terms of reference.
And it was designed to get what the president wanted rather than answers?
That's my view. And surely I'm entitled to.
Yes, of course.
Surely I'm entitled. And I've said that, look, I've spoken to some members, and they would have liked to hear the Minister of Education. The Commission of Inquiry must be free to call whichever witness it wants. Whichever witness. We've had commissions of inquiry. You know that. Again, we take part of the place. I believe in responsible freedom. I guess that I've never used that term before. You might want to what's the word now? Deconstruct it. But that's what I believe in. Responsible freedom. I believe in embracing our Constitution. And I believe that when a president swears, I will follow the Constitution. You can't, and do you know, on this access to information, you didn't mention that one. That's one, and we in the press, all of us, including you, Fred, all of us should be worried that we have a commissioner of information who abuses citizens when they ask. And what does the president say? Who has portfolio responsibility for the Commission of Information? I don't interfere in those matters. That is what he's supposed to do. So I can defend as a view. I'm not laying down facts. I'm expressing opinions. When I function, as you said, my primary role is an accountant. When I deal with figures and make sure I get them right, I take the approach that you as an academic would take. I always say source. And I tell myself, whenever you're doing a table, you always say where the source is. So you allow the person, even though it's in a newspaper column, I tend to believe I must be responsible.
But you went a bit low. We're recording this program on Father's Day Sunday to be broadcast
Monday.
Monday.
Monday
evening, which is when it's being filmed, I say tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a lead letter in staff book in which I thought it was unbecoming of you that to reply that people have replied to you because they for the supper, they're singing for the supper, they're being paid.
That's my.
Chris, all I earn in this life is pension from UG and NS and my wife. Not a cent paid from the Chronicle. And I
You do all the work? You do all the work?
I do all. I write a daily column for the Chronicle without a cent. I hope based on this now, they will say, I hope based on. And I don't sing for no support. Why can't somebody say, look, Lamb's letter is wrong? Why do they have to like to sing it for okay.
Just allow me to
Let
jump
me
in.
tell you something. When you have one man who is PR to the government, PR to the private sector, that's such a gross, you notice I was very clear, I didn't name anybody. You notice I did not name anybody. But we have too many conflicts of interest. Part of it is the closeness of our society. That's a reality. We have to deal with that. How can you be a commentator and not touch somebody? And you don't always get it right. We must be mature enough, we must be responsible enough to say, look, we got that one wrong.
Yeah,
to hear you say that you do all that work, because I do that kind of work. I don't take a penny for an article. When I was director of NISIL.
You don't need it, I need it.
Sorry?
You don't need it, I need it. Right?
Yeah. This is my thing about the article, the letter appearing today, is that it seems to suggest that those persons that nobody else other than the established middle class has, you didn't say that explicitly, but you can easily read that into what you say, that a person like myself, for example, cannot have a conviction and support the government or some position of the government based on a conviction that my writings would have to be because I am the one term you use, again, you didn't call name, but everybody know, you're referring to all those people who replied to you. One time you use the term otherwise unemployable. Like Freddie, I myself don't get a cent from the Chronicle.
Congratulations.
I write off of my conviction that I believe I can make a contribution through writing. And I am taking umbrage to that view of yours that people can't have a conviction. They got to be, to use Freddie's term, singing for a supper. And I noticed that this thing comes mostly from people who are part of the established Guyanese middle class. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I don't usually consider myself a middle class. Perhaps I am in economic. I'm a typical Alexander Village person. I value my roots in Alexander Village. But
that's what you like to be. That's how you like to project yourself. But that is not what you are.
Class position is how you live out your life.
Yeah.
As I said,
I'm
not that kind of social. I don't write that in that social intellectual.
Socialization is part of
that's
class.
And I write strongly, as you said. When it comes to I have. You made the first point. I write generally against the government. You know, when it was elections. And ministers, I used to get called middle of the night chat. And my WhatsApp is there. Chris, you have to write about this. I don't call names. You have to write about this. One minister said to me, you did the best letter throughout that entire 5 months. And I said, no, I didn't. Frank Diablo's daughter. That's the letter I have. I think that was a brilliant letter. We all have a role we play differently. We don't all agree. we must be able to discuss and disagree respectfully.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that your opinion of today is not respectful of, well, because you are saying that our views are fake and we are projecting the views not of ourselves or not of our free will, but projecting a view that others want us to present.
But there is a little...
Because we are of little means.
But there is a little unfairness you attach to Nascimento. He was bold enough to say, listen, Ram is my friend and I'm not being sarcastic. But then you said with friends like that, it reminds me of Brutus.
Yes, I does. You know what I did, Freddie? I'm answering.
Why you can't disagree with me, friend?
Hold on. You know what I did? I actually called him. You could have called me and said, Chris, why did you say that? You could have done that. You know, I answer telephone all the time.
No, I would have if I knew we weren't coming here. But I know we were coming, so I'm giving you, that was a public letter and you have a public forum.
What I'm saying, some of the things I know, Freddie. Look, that stuff with the Mahdia, right? Those 20 children. You look at who write today. You'll be amazed how many people know about that decision. The poor man, Singh, the outgoing chairman of the Private Sector Commission, get all the licks. That was a collective decision. And I can tell you one of the names you mentioned was fully aware of that decision. So that, when you think of how the Amerindians have been handled, particularly in that matter, look, no race, no section, nobody is perfect. You've got all kinds of problems. But we could have handled that when you buy off people, Freddie. When you buy off people and all that. It's actually, that is a crime in itself. Because you're subverting the course of justice.
Hold on. So you think...
Don't ask me before.
So you think my response
No, not at all.
Was a bot response?
No.
No, but that is the...
But you know the expression.
That is what you projected in your letter today.
Now that you've explained, as I said, but you could have called me. As I said, I called Kit Nascimento, you know. But look, this is a man for whom I'm acting pro bono in a legal matter. I call him to tell him I'll be taking it up, you know. I did.
Right.
Let's talk. That's what I'm saying. And look, if I offended you, not if I offended you, I obviously have offended you, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Perhaps most revealing is that President Ali's action constitute a grave betrayal of the Guyanese public who given the privilege of being their leader. You think that is reflecting?
That's my view.
Yeah, you think that reflects?
But Freddie, and I wish you guys, and don't let us, let's keep the temperature. Hold on, let's the temperature. We're talking, this thing, you must have heard how many times Irfan Ali talked about the Exxon contract. I'm surprised, Freddie, and I wish you would have a good discussion. Look, because I said to people, I think Vincent Adams, on that lightning, the 1919 with the 1999 with the 2016, I think he's wrong. And bring us together, and I will say that. In fact, I plan writing about it, because you cannot compare a post-discovery contract. And it's not a contract. Well, it's a contract in the legal sense. The 1999 petroleum agreement with the 2016 petroleum agreement. The 2016 petroleum agreement, we had 3, 1 confirmed discovery and 2 were in the works. And you cannot compare them. So Adams was wrong, and I'm saying this on television. But the point I'm getting at, why has President Ali changed his position?
He has to, Chris.
Well, how do you know?
Chris, a lot of these people who talk about renegotiation of contract are not familiar with the intricacies of the international system. And one of those Guyanese who is very much familiar with it is the man whose book you reviewed, Maurice Odell, in which he described in 2 chapters the kind of new imperialism that controls these small countries. Look at what Guyana is facing. You have to force Exxon, and if not, you unilaterally tell Exxon you're negotiating the contract. It has implications for CARICOM. It has implications for the border issue with Venezuela. It has implications for U.S.-Guyana relations. But most of all, fourthly, we don't have, as a small unknown country, the ambassador to Guyana from France said, nobody in France knows Guyana. We don't, if a contract is lopsided, and I think government ministers, I support President Ali, and I think that the contract is lopsided. But you cannot ask an unknown poor country, given Maurice Odell's description of what is going on in this world, that from colonialism and imperialism is still alive. You can't ask Guyana government, with those countries facing them, to unilaterally renegotiate that contract. And that is what you guys are asking for, because Exxon is saying we are not negotiating. You can say so much about that. It is simply...
Let me know when you finish, please. Let me know when you finish.
It is simply unrealistic. No, and you the guest. You the guest. Sorry, I got better. Fred and I go on too long.
That's how we talk. No. Do you know, does either of you know, that the contract has in fact been renegotiated before? Are you aware of that?
That
formally?
The 2016 agreement,
yes,
has already been renegotiated.
Yes. Are you aware of that?
Go ahead.
By David Granger and Freddie. You
mean how?
In terms of that, when they moved from 1% to 2%. That's in the 2016 agreement. Mm-hmm. But what they did, what the agreement did, and in writing a formal amendment to the 2016 agreement, that's why I'm saying we need to talk, to make that a non-deductible expense, which is correct, because royalty is not a form of income. Royalty is if I take away and I remove. So it was.
Now, that was an omission, not a renegotiation.
No, it's not an omission. It's a renegotiation, because as it was, it was a deductible expense. And they went and they argued this has to be deductible. Now to your point. The contract, yes, you have international forces. Again, you know international law, international practices more than I do. But in relation to a contract or an agreement that specifies and that allows for renegotiation, you as one party don't tell, and well, don't let me go there. You as one party cannot anticipate what the other side is going to say. You write to them in a civilized, constructive way. You write and say, look, we wish to have formal negotiations on the following issues. They can then come back and say, you know what, let's meet. Or they can say, no, we reject. And you then say, we're taking it, let's go to arbitration. Is my test unreasonable? You know, for 40 years, till 2056, ready, then this agreement as it stands, we will continue to have to pay taxes for those companies.
But we're talking about renegotiating the contract.
So you understand what I'm saying?
I'm saying the Guyana government doesn't have the latitude and will not be given the latitude.
I'm a lawyer, and I'm telling you it is permissible, it can be done, it's done all the time under these long-term contracts.
But on the local circumstances, Freddie is looking at the geopolitical implications of doing so, for which there are lots of examples around the world, even Venezuela right next door with the very company Exxon.
No, but that was an expropriation, Leonard. That's very different.
But all I'm saying, all I'm saying is government,
the international system reacts,
made an intervention that Exxon did not agree with, and that caused a whole lot of dominoes to fall.
I agree. It can happen, but I'm saying the agreement, the 2016 petroleum.
It will happen.
Can I please?
Yes. My apologies.
there is a process that you would apply. So if you want. Now, as I said, you have said, this was after they were, was this after they were elected? Or certainly before they were elected? Because you had the period, I mean, they were elected, as far as I'm concerned, in March. They did, because of the attempted and proved rigging, they didn't get power until, what was it, August the 2nd? Yeah. So they had time. The fact is, it is possible. We can disagree. But for you to say, or for them to say, Jagdeo said, look, they got $3 billion every time he hears of a discovery, Guyanese should try it. Now, it is the reason that was given is not the point being made by you and Freddie, but as, it's sanctity of contract. Now, we have pointed out, I have pointed out, and maybe my articles are too technical, but that's how I write. I have done a whole 4-part on how this business of sanctity of contract. I quoted from a Canadian case as well, how it looked at that issue.
Not in the context, I know that case you quoted. You are not taking it to your political thing.
I said I accept.
Sanctity of contract.
You can have a different. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So you feel strongly, so do I.
All right, well, let's move on then.
Go ahead. Now that we're okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
No. Now that
I
we're
know
on
this,
the.
you don't know Chris. So
Now that we're on the.
have a dialogue with you.
No. We know each other well. Now that we are on the oil contract thing, I'd like to take you up on the contents of the article I wrote. You have said that a low tax to GDP ratio makes the government look foolish, and that is bad for our economy, and I disagree. Now, can you explain why do you hold that view with respect to the?
I'm not sure I use the word foolish. I'm not sure, but
yes.
I may. Okay,
you're quoted as saying foolish.
Okay, now
specific word.
It is because of our failure to update our economic statistical base. What we're using the economic base for GDP. Pre-oil. That was the last time we did this. I think it was 2012. We had a 2012 realignment. Now, what we need to do. So, because of oil now accounts for what? 60-75% of our economy in terms of GDP. Not for money that comes to our country. The oil does not even reach the shores of Guyana. You appreciate that? So what I think we need to do to get a good measure is to separate the oil from the non-oil. Trinidad, all countries do. We can't even get our census. And again, I would ask for you people, you have a lot of influence, both of you, call on this young man. Why don't we have the census figures? Because in that way you test things like cost of living, you test things like housing, you test things like the voters list, you test. Those are things we need. That's what makes us. To be a civilized society, you have to be an informed society. If you don't try to make it better. Let's not forget, the PPP has been in power for all but 4.5 of the last 33 years. They have enough time. The Stats Bureau comes under the Ministry of Finance. I am saying we need to fix those things because all of us grow in the dark. Prior to oil, we were in the 30%. Tax
collection.
GDP. At the moment, now, it's interesting you raise that question. If we apply the contract, but you see, and I'm saying this, the lawlessness, when we don't follow the law, that's my definition of lawlessness. What the 2016 agreement requires is first, the money goes into the Natural Resource Fund, which is managed by the Bank of Guyana. Sensibly, in my view, the Bank of Guyana decides to hold the money offshore. Otherwise, if you bring it, you've got all kinds of problems with exchange rate, etc. The agreement provides as follows. When the oil companies prepare their tax returns, they hand it to the Minister of Petroleum. He then goes to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Natural Resources and say, look, this agreement requires me to pay these taxes. Can I please have a check to pay the taxes? What has happened? And I suspect, and I'm saying this on your program, Freddie, because it has a good audience. I am saying, and I've been calling for this, I have to go to court, I'm going to court for it. Show me where that money was collected. Now, if that money is collected, if that section of the act is followed, our tax figures will go up.
Which act specifically?
The natural resource. No, the petroleum agreement, Article 15.4.
Oh, the
agreement itself.
Agreement,
yes.
It's okay.
Yes.
Good.
Now, what the Attorney General has said, well, we made that. It can't happen anymore because the Natural Resource Fund said you can only use it for this and that. But the oil companies are getting, and I would like you to find out for me, please, where is that certificate? Who is issuing the certificate of assessment? Because they are getting it. The way I know they're getting it, check the oil companies. I don't know about don't know about CNOOC. I know about Hess. I know about Exxon because they have to file returns and they're putting that tax credit. Who gave them that certificate? It is not reflected. To come back to your question, what should happen? So the minister goes, he gets a check, he then goes to the GRA, Cam Street, and says, here, I'm paying, here are the returns for these oil companies, here are the checks. I want you to write the receipt in the name of the company. He then will take that money, he gets actual money from the NRF to the Consolidated Fund, and that money is then shown as taxes. As simple as that. You see? Let, because I want you to understand this. And therefore the tax collection figure will in fact go up. Even though you can talk about MasterCard, they're two separate sets of accounts. One is a natural resource fund, and one is a consolidated fund.
Now, one of your argument is that...
But have I answered your question about the tax to GDP? Because your tax figure will go right up, it will skyrocket.
Mm-hmm. But the tax to GDP ratio is not as useful as you are projecting it to be because there are several issues in combining the ratio with respect to its use, and the very...
Give me a couple examples.
Okay. So, for example, you've argued, I read in one of your writings, that you've argued that one of the reasons why we should renegotiate the contract is because the oil companies don't pay any tax, right? And in that very Kaichur News article...
I don't write for Kaichur News.
No, you answered, they interviewed you.
Kaichur News has not interviewed me for a couple of years.
They said they interviewed you in Kaichur News last week. Okay,
let's go. Last week? Certainly not.
Yeah, well, certainly. You have to respond. Well,
you can't respond to everything.
They quote you in the newspaper.
No, because I post all my articles on chrisram.net.
No, but they said they checked the context. They said they wrote as if they spoke to you on the phone. Anyway,
sometimes they would talk, but in terms of a formal interview,
well then Kaichur is misleading its audience.
It's readers.
It's readers. Well, same thing because same thing.
That was when Freddie was here.
Yeah. So the thing is, if you look, first of all, that report stops at 2023. So 2024 and 2025 figures cannot be counted. And up in 2023, Exxon took just about $1 billion out of profit oil. Just about $1 billion. Guyana got 1.6 billion in 2023.
No, you can't take. This is a mistake that is often made, and I'm not.
You're getting down to nuances of words.
No. The agreement is such that the profit is 50% Guyana and 50% oil companies. IES.
Right.
So they combine it, and Guyana should get the equal share of profit oil. Royalty is different because royalty, Guyana gets that without that 75% limitation.
Right. But in loose terms, we refer to Guyana's takings, this total takings, which includes royalty and the 50%. And that is why Guyana's share will always be higher. But my point is
Guyana
this.
share is not higher. Guyana share is not higher.
No, in actual dollars I'm talking about.
I am
the
saying
total
Guyana,
takings.
I am saying Guyana share is not higher. You
You are being technical, but I'm just saying.
Oh man, what is technical?
Hold on. I am saying that the oil companies, to use your term, because we generally refer to Exxon as the whole bundle, right?
Yeah.
The oil companies took just about 1.1 billion, if you want to round it off, in 2023. The Guyana government got 1.6.
That is not correct.
I'm talking about the total
I am saying
income.
that is not correct.
What is correct?
Unfortunately, now if you had told me that this was a topic you want to raise specifically, and I don't want to interrupt the interview, but
Right.
I have that information is in the office. Because what we did in 2023, we took all the oil companies' profits, all the financial statements, and we did a summary. And then in a fourth article, we combined them and looked what Guyana got. At that point, I said it was about 4-1. That much I know generally.
What? It was 4-1.
What the oil companies got versus what we got.
No, and you were saying
And
that is from profit oil?
Yes.
The
Absolutely.
oil companies
I
got
am saying
4-1?
yes.
That cannot be accurate.
And then on that score, we could move on.
No.
Because-
Let's decide how are we going to we can't leave it's a disservice, your program.
Right.
It's a disservice to our audience if we left them, two people got a completely, we're misleading, someone of us is misleading the audience.
Okay, so you are saying Exxon, 2 weeks ago, Exxon reported that the oil companies got a total of, I think it's $11 billion up to the end of 2024. And then they reported that Guyana got 13 billion, and they got 11. You were disputing that too?
If I may say
From profit oil.
If I may say so, and I say it very respectfully, that sounds very much like Jack Dew, because when he was asked a question by a reporter.
No, but that is what
Let me-
Exxon
let me-
reported.
let me
So I'm
finish.
asking you
Let me
if you're
finish,
saying
please.
that
Let
is
me finish.
fiction too.
Let me finish, please. He conflated a 1 year with a 3 year. The question was 2024. And he said, something. And I dissected, not deconstruct, dissected his statement appearing in yesterday's oil and gas column. The figures are very different. What they do, and you see here again, and I wish the press would support cause. When you have a joint venture like this, what you need, and I always draw a comparison with Ramon McRae, you should have a joint venture account. They themselves call it a joint venture, you know. But to fool us, they very separate accounts. They never say how many barrels they got. They never say that. And what they do, they have a separate income statement, a revenue statement, and then they deduct expenses separately, all separately, and I've got them. If you were upset about it, I would show you. So that you don't know what the figures are, you have to put them together. And then you take Guyana. The way you get it from Guyana, you go to the Bank of Guyana, there's a website, Natural Resource Fund, and there are quarterly reports. And the quarterly reports indicate the revenue we get, the barrels we get, the revenue for the quarter, and the cumulative for the year. That's how it is. So they do mislead, they don't provide it.
So, no, all right. Let me just forward so that we could move on. Just a simple, straightforward. Guyana government has accepted that so far the accumulative income from oil is about 13 billion. They have accepted that in the ballpark of
But
13.
I don't know what they've accepted. I can't comment on that.
No, hold on. If we are to follow your logic, it means then that Exxon has taken 4 times more than that from profit oil. That's
what I'm saying. And I publish it. No. You are...
With due respect, that has to be ridiculous.
Chris,
let me just tell you, it is not, it's factual. You might
4 times from profit oil.
Yes.
Chris,
okay.
When you look, can you watch our viewers and watch this nation in the eyes and tell people that of the competitors in this election that's coming up in the 1st of September, Irfan Ali is not way ahead of them and deserves to be re-elected?
Look, when a man hiding figures, I have a big problem with it. I asked you, you didn't mention Silica City. You tell me where Silica City appears. I am not saying, and I answered this question. I believe Kit Nascimento raised that. You know what I said? NOTA. You know what that means? None of the above. I don't intend to vote in these elections.
You don't think, given all that he has done, given his style, his approach to working class people, you don't think that he is much the better choice than the
Well, I
rest
don't
of
know
them?
what the choice is yet. There's no nomination there. What's the choice?
But you could know what.
No, I'm not going to speculate. You're asking me to
But
speculate.
okay, well, we have choices right now.
Yeah.
Aubrey Norton is for the PNC. Nigel Hughes is the AFC. I think, I don't even want to mention T. Mohammed. That's such an absurdity. But T. Mohammed. And then there's Anug, a doctor named Mark France. They've all committed to be running in the election as presidential candidate.
So your question?
So my question is within that confinement.
I will vote for none. Am I free? Not free to vote?
So okay, sure.
Chris is saying nobody can run this country for him.
I did not say that. You heard me say that? Man, come on. Now you use the word ridiculous.
All right. Okay, I take that back. But here now, I was just using layman's term because if we have a variety of people running and you're saying nobody can,
I will not vote. Look, I am not trying to hold up the elections. Let people vote for what they want. The right to vote includes the right not to vote,
Yeah, sure.
Good. And you agree that I'm exercising my right. If after nomination people put out the manifesto, let's see what they say about the oil contract. Let's see what they say about housing. Let's see what they say about the Commission of Information, the issues that concern me. Everybody.
The straw that breaks the camel's back for you would be the oil contract.
No.
Renegotiating.
Not a single one.
So a person or a team that does not commit to renegotiating the contract but have other things that suit you, you can be persuaded.
I am always persuaded.
Okay.
I think all of us as reasonable ought to be persuaded. Look, I wrote about, in today's papers, I wrote about Mrs. Zaino. Oh God, $42,000 a month, Freddie. And Mandalal takes it first.
No.
Hold on a bit. Can I please?
No, there's a big gap. There's a big gap. Chris, you're an officer of the law. There is a flaw in that argument with Mr. Zainu. Mr. Zainu called me. Whatever I could do for Mr. Zainu, I don't have any finance I could do for him. I'm sorry about what has happened to him. But we also have to give the other side. You won that case, and it's appeal.
I don't want the case. I don't want the case.
Right. But whichever if you want to split that, people normally say the lawyer won the case. Zainu won the case. But viewers are not seeing Mr. Nandalal's position. In that case, no evidence came out that Tulsi Prasad transmitted NIS deduction to the NIS. The man said, I was an employee with Tulsi Prasad. There is evidence that he paid NIS. The crux of the appeal is that if you allow this, then you're opening the floodgates because you're allowing people to get paid from the NIS when the companies did not transmit the deduction. That is the appeal, Chris.
That's what you're saying. Have you read the evidence? Are you aware of the evidence that was presented before the court? No, I'm asking you a straight question. Are you aware of the evidence presented to the court?
No, I'm aware that I met you in King Street and we had a discussion and you conceded, if you could remember, that.
Not at all. No.
There's no evidence that.
There is, of course,
that,
there's evidence.
That Tulsi Prasad transmitted.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. A couple of things. When the matter came, when the decision was handed down, I have to advise my client. So I spoke to them. They told me, but we do this already. There's nothing to appeal. We are not appealing. I'm telling you that. That decision was made outside of the NIS. Second, and this is what I don't like. Anil Nandalal called me, congratulated me on the decision. And I said, the only thing I should have done, but I didn't have an obligation to. This is between the NIS and Mr. Zainu. I said, I'm sorry we didn't put them to the court. Now NIS could have done it. Do you know that's the ground they brought? It is so dishonest. And Freddie, dishonesty is something I cannot take. I don't mind us not taking different.
Before the court, the company that is alleged to not have paid.
Yes. But the obligation under the law is that the NIS supervises the employers. And we did provide. I was impressed. Because Freddie, if you ask me where my pay is there, Zainul, you'll be amazed how many poor people, what we call poor people, just come and keep all their pay slips. They do. The man Zainul had a lot, and to the judge's credit, the judges wrote, and I was impressed, because I don't think she had to.
I'm operator signal, we have 2 minutes more to go.
So I would like you to take that up.
Something came out and I was overflowing with curiosity, but this outing between you and him didn't allow me to you've always said that you're happy being a working class man, but I know how you explain this. I'm curious, and this is a light part of the interview. How can a working class man every year celebrate his birthday at the Pegasus and then at the Theatre Guild? That's a lot of money being spent. Working class people do that.
You are so, and I'm going to be serious now. You believe a lot of nonsense. I'm sorry. I don't. I never observed a birthday until let me finish, please. Sure. I never observed a birthday until I was 70. And my family said, look, you know, it is like a family reunion. Let us try to do it. I did it back in 75. And I planned doing it, God spare life.
You were 70 in 75?
70 in, no, 71.
2020.
But when last you did it? When last you celebrated your birthday?
I celebrated when I was 75. I'm now 79. What happened
Okay.
because of
You didn't celebrate your birthday
No,
last
let
year.
me finish, please. Let me finish.
Okay.
Please. Because of COVID, we had to postpone it.
Oh.
So it's a 5-yearly thing, Freddie. It's not an annual.
Every 5 years.
Okay.
And I did want to,
okay.
I did want to, I like to support things like Theatre Guild and so on, right? So I thought, well, let's have something.
But it was
And
one at Theatre Guild and one at the Pegasus.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So it's
Why I
70,
say that is because
a quick question
people
before
no, it's
we...
70, 75, and 80, and then at dawn.
A quick question before we...
You understand what you mean by dawn, yeah?
A light quick question. You are an attorney or an accountant and all of that, and you write a lot. Yeah, a standing article plus many letters. How do you find the time? When do you really write? In the bustle of the day, or you wake up at night?
I was thinking about this thing this morning, and I would like anybody to advise me. Anybody on it. I don't sleep enough. I can't sleep enough. That's no problem.
So
I have a sleep problem.
So you do that at night, late at night,
yes,
and so on.
But I also being the boss gives you certain prerogative.
Okay. You
So-
could lock your door, tell them stay outside,
but
and write
I
your...
really have a sleeping problem. I don't sleep enough, and I worry. Recently, I started to-
That's a serious admission, and
No.
you should consult your doctor because whenever you go to them for your annual checkup, that's two things they ask
Yes.
automatically. Do you exercise and do you get sufficient sleep?
Well, I do exercise.
Well, I would hope that you
What
stay
did you
in
got
good health.
advice for me?
You're one of the assets to Guyana, and I hope you keep your health very.
Well, thank you very much.
You should not, seriously, you should not ever think of not getting your full quota of sleep.
But how you do it is one thing to say it. In fact, when you
Stop.
think I am falling asleep,
Stop making all that money and enjoy life. Chris, it's nice to have us in your office.
Yeah,
Thanks
sure.
for being with us. Our guest
anytime
was-
you want, call me back, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for being with us. Our guest this Monday evening was Christopher Ram. We were filming in his office. We will see you on Wednesday.